All right, I think I should be live right now. Yeah, looks like everything is working. Make sure to say something in the chat if something is going wrong. But this is going to be my first little podcast in a while. And if you guys are interested in joining the conversation, go ahead and let me know. And I'll probably, I'm going to go ahead and trust chat today. And we're going to have um, uh, well, actually, yeah. I mean, if you're interested in joining the conversation, I will post the link into the chat. But I will only be letting the person that I invite on. That way, we avoid any type of a troll getting into the conversation. So, yeah, today essentially we're going to be the main topic of today is going to be basically talking about the Artemis program. We're going to be talking about whether America should go to the moon or not. So again, if you are interested in joining this conversation, go ahead and let me know in the chat. Let's go ahead and get chat active in today's topic of discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up now. So essentially, if you've been living under a rock, essentially the United States is returning to the moon. This is going to be the first manned return to the moon in nearly 50 years since 1973. Essentially, the last time that we had a person on the moon, which was Apollo 17, Nixon was still president. Yes, Nixon was president before the end uh, uh, of the Apollo programs. So, essentially, the Artemis program, according to Wikipedia, and just so I can, give a basic summary of what the Artemis program is, it's the United States-led international human space flight program. It was initiated in 2017 with the primary goal of returning humans to the moon, specifically the lunar southern pole in the mid 2020s, which is the first crew landing is going to be in 2024. So essentially, before 2020 or around 2024, we will have a man and a woman on the moon. So we got our first chatter. Thank you so much, Martha, my dear. I don't give a damn. Hello, I wish we'd go to Mars instead of the moon to that equator area. Are you talking about like one of the canyons on Mars? And we'll actually get to that about like, oh, why are we going to the moon? We've already been to the moon, or we just need to go to Mars. Essentially, there is reasoning behind that. So I'll get to that in a minute. If successful, it'll be the first crewed landing since the end of the Apollo program in 1972. Okay, so 72, not 73. The Artemis program formally began in 2017 as a reorganization and continuation of successive efforts to revitalize the U.S. space program since 2009. It stated the short-term goals landing the first woman on the moon. Midterm objectives include establishing an international expedition team and a sustainable human presence on the moon. And long term objectives are laying the foundations for private companies to build a lunar economy and essentially sending humans to Mars and beyond feasible. The Artemis program is carried out predominantly by NASA and U.S. commercial space flight contractors in partnership with the agencies of Europe, Luxembourg, Japan, Canada, Italy, Australia, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, Ukraine, Brazil, South Korea, and New Zealand. Other nations are invited to join the program through signing the governing Artemis Accords, which remain open for signature since October of 2020. And why does it have to be a man and a woman, not just a qualified person? Oh yeah, diversity plus entertainment value. Maybe they'll have. Oh yeah, whatever. Um, essentially, uh, there are a lot of qualified men and women. It's not about like, oh, I kind of get the assumption, oh, because they're specifically saying that we need to send a woman to the moon. It's just like it's all about qualifications. Yes, they're going to pick the most qualified woman to send to the moon. It's just that they want to get that achievement because there hasn't been a woman on the moon. So it does make sense for us to say, hey, instead, since we've opened up our space program, back during the 1970s, 60s, and 70s, it wasn't open to women. So this is going to be the first time that we've had an open lunar program that will be open to women. And then so essentially we can say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and send women to the moon. What exactly is a woman, PG? I don't know. But if a man is more qualified for the mission, well, again, the thing is that, um, I mean, there are pretty qualified men and women out there, so why should it just be restricted to a man? And I'm right wing. I'm, I'm right wing saying this, but it's like, should it be? Just like just zeroed in on men, should we just only send men to the moon? I don't think so. But because women still make up 55% of the population, you're just basically saying, oh yeah, just what if the man's more qualified? Of course there's probably going to be a lot more qualified men and men out there, but at the same time, there have been women and girls that have been inspired by scientists, including people like Sally Ride, that was the first woman in space on the what was it, the space shuttle program. If someone gave birth on the moon, it would be the first moon man. Yeah, of course. Why is this on entertainment? Shit. It's listed on entertainment. No wonder I'm getting different people in here. Shit. I'm sorry if this is being recommended to you illegitimately. Well, I just changed it to news and politics, so I do apologize. Maybe I should change it to like what is it? Science and technology. Maybe it could be a science and technology stream. I'll do news and politics, and if we're gonna stay on the moon and space and technology for the majority of the stream, then yeah, we are going to change that listing. But if you guys have been looking for entertainment, and you're like, oh, why am I getting this kind of stream? Oh, I apologize. May I join the stream? Matt Gagnon. Is that the real Matt Gagnon? Is that the real Matt Gagnon? I will grab a link if that is the real Matt Gagnon. But yes, if that is the real Matt Gagnon, I would absolutely appreciate you coming on this stream. Actually, I should have invited you. At first, I was trying to grab a couple of people and be like, "Hey, you want to join the stream?" And I totally slipped my mind for you to get on this stream. Let me actually send you a link on Discord if I can actually find you. Aha, there you are. So I'll send you a link on a Discord. So go ahead and grab that off of a Discord. Always great to have another person on to this conversation. Because space is actually one of my favorite topics to talk about. I don't talk about it enough. But essentially, since we are going to the moon, it has actually been one of the biggest passions of mine. I've had a lot of different types of interests in my life, and space and technology has always been one of them. Let's go ahead and add Matt Gagnon to the stream. Welcome to the stream, Matt.
Well, first time I'm a guest on someone's stream. I've always been hosting. I just finished my live stream with Frank Polo, who's running against Maria Salazar.
Oh shit! I meant to go there.
You're good. You're good. This Friday, though, I am going to interview Trump-endorsed candidate Steve Carra on Friday morning, 9 o'clock. So,
Friday morning, 9 o'clock, and you're on East, right?
Yeah, I'm on the East, bro. I guess you're like an hour behind. Yeah. But no, I just finished talking to Frank Polo, and then I just saw you were live. I just joined, and I see you. Like, all right, well, I was thinking about joining. It's up to you, though. Yeah. I was like, all right, I'll see if I can get an invite.
So, what are your thoughts on returning to the moon? Do you think that it is going to be something that we should do? Do you think that it should Do you think that's a waste of money? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I think, well, I mean, President Trump, before, he was out of office, I mean, he was the one that initiated the Space Force. I mean, there's no reason behind whether or not we should be on the moon at the moment, but I know for a fact that we have the Space Force for a reason. And if that was the case, we'd be able to go back to the moon. Though I think we should go to the moon if we need to find more of I would say more information regarding other, space technology or space information,
Yeah. And the biggest thing about it is that essentially it's going to happen in kind of like these phases. So, like, essentially, the Artemis program is going to start out with, so, like, the first mission is actually going to be an unmanned Orion capsule that we're going to send to the moon, and it's going to kind of like do this flyby. I think it's making sure that the computers work correctly. So it's going to go to the moon this November. So Artemis, it's going to be called Artemis 1, Artemis 2, and Artemis 3. Artemis 1 is going to be the first one that launches this November of 2021. And then Artemis 2 is going to be in like 2023, and it's actually going to be a manned capsule. So we're going to have, I think it's going to be like 3 or 4 people in the Artemis 2 capsule. And then in Artemis 3, which will launch in 2024, that is going to be the one that actually lands on the moon. And so I've seen a couple of people that are basically like, why does it have to be a woman? Because it's going to be one man and one woman that are going to land on the moon. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, what's the sole purpose of going to the moon is my question.
The sole purpose of going to the moon is essentially to, for one, jumpstart economic competition from the moon. So basically, we mine for resources on the moon. There's a lot of hydrogen. There's a lot of water on the moon that's available. And essentially, it'll also serve as a permanent base, because that is actually one of the biggest goals that are a part of the Artemis mission, is to start a permanent base of operations on the moon.
Yeah.
And then later on down the line, back into 2030s, late 2020s, 2030s, 2040s, essentially it's going to serve as a launching base for us to go to Mars. So essentially, whenever you're talking about, sending things into space, so it's extremely expensive for us to do it off of Earth, because whenever you're dealing with rocket physics, there's something called delta V, and there's something called gravity. So whenever you're launching off of the Earth, essentially the Earth is so big and the atmosphere is so thick whenever you're at sea level. The air resistance is so hard trying to get out from whenever you're launching from, like Vandenberg or Cape Canaveral or something like that. So if you're launching from the moon, there's no air resistance on the moon. So essentially you're using less fuel for us to get off of the moon, and it would make it easier for us to, go to like Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, deeper into the solar system with less costs involved. And essentially the other thing about it is that it'll actually be cheaper for us to launch from the moon, because the moon already has fuel there, because they have water. Essentially, water can be turned into hydrogen, and then hydrogen is what is one of the main components used in rocket fuel in the rockets that we use today.
Okay, it basically just boosts the economy then.
Basically. And then,
I don't think it's a bad idea. When you mention if it's a waste of money, I don't think it would be a waste of money regarding if we're going up there to actually get what we need to get. Now, if we're going up there and we're not getting anything, and there's nothing really up there that we were expecting, then I would consider it to be a waste of money. But it's a hit and miss.
Yeah, I think it will be a hit and miss because it depends on how valuable everyone thinks of the moon as. So essentially, one of the ways that my friend put this, I had a conversation about this with him. I think whenever Trump first started the Artemis program, and this
Yeah.
is actually one of my favorite policies that Trump ever signed into office during his first presidency, is the Artemis program. So essentially, we can go to the moon, or a private company can go to the moon and say, they bring back some of the resources from the moon. It's like lunar water, lunar uh, lunar rocks, even some type of resource from the moon, and then essentially we can bring that back, and then that company, sells it to another company for say several $1,000,000. Then that several $1,000,000 can be taxed by that company, and then we can bring in more money. And essentially it's kind of like a gold mine, except a gold mine is 250,000 miles away from us.
Wait, let me just get this up. Yeah, I hear you.
Some people are saying, so I'm looking at the chat right now. Messing with me.
Yeah, I was just looking at chat too, by the way. I was trying to see
I was
something.
looking at chat too. So we should colonize the moon and mine all the natural resources. That's one way that we can do it. It's also to serve as I guess the beginning of the space race with the Chinese, because
The thing is, though, they have to be smart about this. They have to be smart about it. That's all I have to say when it comes to them going to the moon. When it comes to spending their resources, using their resources to get to the moon, they have to be smart on what they need to use in order for them to essentially get what they need to get and then go. It's not
What
safe.
do you mean by being smart, though?
Being smart as of just being precautious towards any like hazards around them. I know there are space missions that have failed, and I would assume that it could fail again. I mean, there was a rocket, I think, recently that has failed to go to the moon, and they, I guess,
Actually,
what was that?
It didn't. It technically Apollo 13. You're thinking of Apollo 13.
No, it was a recent rocket. I'm not talking about explosions or anything, but I'm just talking about like a failed launch. Making sure that they have everything, that way they don't have a failed launch. I know that
you're talking about that Space Force rocket from Vandenberg?
There was one in Florida that I think it was like last year or so. I'm not sure it was this year or last year. But I know there was a rocket that was supposed to go in space, and then it got delayed, it got canceled. But I'm just saying, like, in order for, being more precautious, being more smart as of making sure that the rocket is all set to go that way, you don't necessarily have this big, I would say, like, this big showing and then nothing happening. I would think that, make sure that you got the rocket, make sure that, the stuff for the rocket is all set, the statistics is okay for the rocket, everything is normal, and then once they go into space, they're going to have to be sure that they were able to at least be able to get the resources they need and come back without no problem.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that a lot of people, and I feel like that if one of the Artemis missions, especially if it is manned, it could be treated similar to whenever the Challenger exploded, where everyone was just like, oh my god, like, why are we going into space in the first place? Because it's just going to kill us, like, blah 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 blah. Because even if something does go wrong, and even if we do lose people as they're in space or as they're on the moon, there was a speech by Nixon that they actually prepared for Nixon in the event that the Apollo mission went wrong on its way to the moon, or whenever they landed on the moon. And essentially, it was actually pretty dark because they actually said that they were going to cut communications with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and just kind of leave them there. And they weren't going to send anyone there to get him. But it's like every time that someone gets into the rocket, they always kind of expect that something is going to go wrong or that they may not come back. Because it's essentially like sending someone into a war zone. Because I think most of the time, a lot of astronauts are not exactly expecting to come home because they know there's an off chance that they're gonna roll the wrong dice and the rocket's gonna blow up or they're gonna get stuck in space or something like that.
Yeah.
But then what the public really doesn't understand, and especially for someone who doesn't really know that much about space, about rockets or about space travel, essentially, they kind of look at it like, well, why are we sending those resources in there into the first place? What exactly are we getting back? And to some people, it's like, well, what's a space rock gonna do for me? I've had conversations with very specific someone that me and you had a conversation about.
Oh yeah, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, I've had conversations with him essentially about like, well, what is it going to do for my student loans? What is it going to do for me, for someone who's studying, I think, political science or something like that? And I was saying, basically like, I mean, the economic resources are tenfold. It's going to help us. I mean, it could help us pay off the debt. It could help us, institute more policies like free community college, free healthcare, because we would actually be able to pay for that because we're getting these resources from the moon that we don't have here on Earth. And then they say, well, we've already been to the moon. We've already been there. Why are we not letting these private companies do it? And so essentially there's just a lot of people that are basically like, well, I want to go to college. I don't want to have to deal with these student loans. So why are we wasting money on going to the moon?
Yeah. Also, you got to think about it too. Like, it's not just the United States that's trying to get the resources. There's other countries. If you go back to like when we had the back in, I would say, the 50s and 60s, with Russia and China trying to claim, basically try to get to the moon first, trying to make themselves have known for being the first country to be on the moon. Other countries, especially now, are trying to also get the resources that that way they can support not only themselves but the economy. That way they can trade their resources with other countries that may need it, and that way it boosts their economy and make their economy much stronger. The problem is China's economy is now stronger than the United States, and I wonder why. So that's why the United States needs to definitely make sure that they get the resources they need. That way they can boost their economy. That way we can actually beat China, but it's not going to happen until, we either have another president, because our current president is very weak on China.
Yeah, and essentially I'm kind of mixed on Biden whenever it comes to space policy, because my biggest worry about before he was elected president, and especially the time between whenever he became president, I was especially worried that he was just going to step into office, and I knew, and a lot of other people knew this too, that he was going to walk back a lot of Trump policies. But some economic policies that Trump kind of like signed into place, I think it was like the Made in America policy. And again, my biggest worry was the Artemis program, that he was going to come in and say, okay, why are we going to the moon? Let's get rid of that. And then he was just going to sign the executive order and order Space Policy Directive 1 to essentially go F itself.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He actually has endorsed the Artemis program, and the Artemis program is continuing to go ahead. I see a comment right here. It says, leave space travel to the free market. Bezos and Musk will always be better than NASA. Well, that's the other thing, is that we're actually working with SpaceX and Amazon to go to the moon. There's actually a lawsuit, for one thing, that I'm worried that is going to delay the Artemis program, because Bezos needs to just, step aside. And they lost. Essentially, there's a lawsuit going on right now with Amazon and NASA, because SpaceX and Amazon were basically bidding to help NASA get to the moon, and they were proposing these rocket ships that were gonna get our our astronauts to the moon. And so Amazon actually lost that bidding, because I think SpaceX provided NASA like a $2.4 billion spaceship, and Amazon was offering like a $5 billion spaceship. So, NASA being NASA and the government being the government, they're going to take the cheaper alternative. And so Amazon is actually suing them because of that bidding loss. But essentially, one of the biggest things about us going to the moon is that we are still utilizing the free market by getting with these private companies, and they're actually making it way cheaper for us. If we did this 10 years ago with the Constellation program, which was canceled by the Obama administration, it would have cost us like, I think, $300 billion. And the Artemis program right now is only costing the United States, let me look what it's going to cost us within the next 10 years. $35 billion, or actually, this is within the next 4 years, 2020 to 2024. It's only costing the United States $35 billion.
Yeah.
And that's for 4 years. And that's still astronomically way more than what the Apollo program cost. But, that's accounting for inflation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's, again, we're also really worried that with inflation right now, with maybe the upcoming economic crisis that might be hitting us, then that may also end up canceling the Artemis program.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, that's the inflation crisis right now, especially gas prices going up too. Like now, gas prices where I am at is at it's basically at $3 a gallon, not even maybe $3.30 a gallon. And even if you go down in the south, when I went to Texas to see you, I've seen gas prices in Denton. I've seen gas prices in Fort Worth, Dallas, going up, and gas prices were so well. I would assume Texas's gas prices before the Biden administration were very low, more low than the Northeast, I would say. So just seeing how the gas prices were somewhat similar to my gas prices are actually very surprising. And if you're going
it's mainly because we're an oil state.
Yes. And so when you go to the moon, you get those resources. I'm not sure they have gas on the moon. I don't think so. But you get those resources and you trade with, other countries. That way you can get what you need. Then at the same time, it's not really going to be working out. It just, the inflation is just, it's too much money to just get one, just to get gas. It's just crazy. I don't think that the moon program is really going to be helping the inflation crisis. I think that mainly it's only a small part into helping. I'm not going to say it's not going to help at all, but there's a lot of things that need to be done and changed in order for the inflation crisis to not happen, nor so end before it gets worse.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things is, it's, and if the Artemis program does go ahead and, we enter this depression, of this economic depression, I honestly am probably 99% certain that the Artemis program would end up being meeting the same fate as the Constellation program. But the thing about going to the moon, about the resources that are on the moon, is, essentially once we get there, it's basically like as if you're walking on foot from one city to another, and you're going there because you have a job. You don't have any other way of getting there. And by the time you get there, yeah, you'll probably, basically be broke. But then by the time you get there, there's already untold fortunes that are awaiting you there. So it's
Yeah.
essentially like if we stop going there and then we say, like, it's too expensive, blah, 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 blah. We're basically giving up trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars worth of economic value. And especially if we're going there and we're going, because if we're spending less than $100 billion going there, setting up a base, setting up the space station that we are going to set up around there before we even go. It's called Gateway. I essentially think that we're going to basically spend maybe less than $1 trillion setting all of this up by, let's say, 2040. But by the time we're done, and especially if we have private companies setting up mines on the moon, setting up all of this other economic activity on the moon, especially if we set up a permanent base on the moon, we're going to make our money back within like 5 years of setting up all of those operations.
Yeah.
NASA has no economic benefit. Again, just as I've been kind of like going on a rant on for the past like 5 minutes, I would definitely disagree with that.
Yeah, like I said, like even if the space program was to help, it only has a small benefit to it. Again, like I don't think it's going to have a big benefit, though it certainly does have some bit of a benefit towards the economy, based on if you can trade those resources with other countries, to make the economy boost for your own country, but.
I like this comment right here. We should not mine on the moon. That would have disastrous effects on tides and other patterns on the Earth. Do you know how much we would have to mine the moon for that to happen? Like, we would literally have to take billions and billions and billions, actually trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of pounds of material off of the moon for that to happen.
Might as well just nuke the moon at this point, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how much science you know, Caleb, but that's not what's gonna happen. That would take millions of years for that to happen at the rate that we would be mining the moon at. And essentially, if you say that, like, it would have disaster effects on the tides and other patterns on Earth, like, that's already happening, by the way, with climate change. I don't know if you believe in climate change or not, but that's already happening on Earth. And so if you're worried about that happening on the moon, are you worried about it happening on Earth? I don't know. Matt, what are your thoughts on climate change? Do you believe that it's true? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Like, that's a weird topic to really discuss. I don't know. I don't personally, like, I can't say I'm 100% don't believe in it, because obviously we all know that climate changes. But there has been some sort of a recent development where you'll have very hot summers and a lot more colder winters, to the point where in the summer, places like Alaska, aren't necessarily seeing the temperatures that they usually see, and they're higher than expected. Now, I'm not saying, it's all our fault, because necessarily isn't. Though at the same time, I do think that trying to think of the words I want to say because making
You're
sure
okay.
that.
You can take your time. I'm not like this is a discussion. It's not really a debate.
Oh
If it turns
no,
into
yeah,
a
yeah, I
debate,
know.
then that's cool.
Yeah.
But
So
this
mainly
is
what
a
I'm trying to
discussion.
say is that necessarily they like to blame it on us basically and saying we got all the the gas and everything. It's melting the ice in Antarctica. The sea level's gonna rise. I don't now personally. I don't believe the sea levels are gonna rise. I personally don't really think that at all. If it does, then there's ways that we can prevent that, like have a structure barrier. That's why we have hurricane barriers. I think that if the study was to come out true and we can physically see the sea levels rise, we can definitely set barriers that way we don't lose land. At the same time, we will be expecting temperatures to change whatsoever. There is a weather pattern for that. And though we do have normal climate, though it does get wacky, and just because it gets wacky a little bit does not mean the world's going to end in the 5 years, But personally, I do believe there is some sort of climate change. I'm not very much of a big, conspiratist as if, climate change is 100% real, even though, Obama did, studies about it. But again, like, I don't really believe in it like others do.
Yeah,
So
basically my thoughts on it
like
is
Caleb right here basically even says the climate is always changing. I don't think global warming is a huge threat, which is exactly what I'm trying to say. I don't think it is. It's always going to change. Though if like for example the sea levels was to rise like they say, then there's preventions to stop that in order for us to still keep our land. But honestly, if that was really the case and they're talking about the gas pollution, that we can definitely decrease that. I'm not promoting like electronic vehicles, but there are some ways that we can do it. I know like countries like Thailand has done something about that, but we'll
how
see
would
what
not
happens.
promoting electric vehicles
But I
do
mean, the thing is though, electric vehicles are good. I think that because the thing is though, like states like California, they like to promote electric vehicles, and they're trying to ban the gas vehicles. They're trying to eliminate those vehicles that like contain gas or require gas, and they're trying to go all electronic. I don't believe in that. I think that if you have a car that's basically running on gas, you should have a car that's running on gas. You shouldn't be banning a car that's running on gas and only going full on electric throughout the state. That's ridiculous.
uh-huh.
Because imagine if you have somebody from another state that has gas in their car, they come into California, there's no gas stations, they're stuck. Where are you going to go? That's stupid. Though,
Yeah.
I mean, electric cars are actually pretty nice. And I mean, I do like them. At the same time, I'm not full on going to be like, all right, let's just switch everything from gas to electric real quick, and then we're not going to have gas. Because gas is, one, is good for our economy, and two, gas is something that we need to live, basically, especially in the wintertime when it gets cold.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have electronic heaters, but at the same time, the fuel and gas is a little bit different than electric. So,
Create. I think that's how you say his name.
also join PG's Discord. I'm seeing it a lot. Join it.
Yeah, I need to mess with Nightbot just to get the times because I'm having longer and longer live streams, and those things
Really, yeah.
pop up way too often.
Yeah, I
Otherwise,
tried joining a lot of your streams. I'm always working, or I'm just busy. But I try to do it. And usually stream when I'm always busy, but I always try to make it. So this is good.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever want to join it or have another podcast or something like that, or like if you're ever doing something on your channel,
oh yeah,
like that, I definitely don't mind joining.
Yeah.
But essentially, Create said that I believe in human-caused climate change. The question is how we can deal with it. And honestly, in my opinion, I feel like that climate change is a real threat. I do believe that that humans do have like this just like stupid amount of contribution toward how the environment is changing. it's mainly because of CO2 emissions, because of the amount of industrialization that we have, the amount of factories, the amount of trash that we throw out in onto the highways of our planet, the amount of trash that we throw into the oceans, and the amounts of just waste that we kind of just dump out. And essentially, what is going on is that um I have this weird feeling about climate change that essentially we're too late to kind of like stop climate change, because climate change is going to happen regardless. Because, being a science believer, I do think that we have like this lever that we kind of push and pull every now and then, and Earth has this natural warming and cooling and warming and cooling, and Earth is in one of those warming stages. It's just that humans have contributed so much to the warming that it's making it a little bit worse than it naturally would have happened if, we were basically like 10,000 years before us, like whenever mammoths were still around. Mammoths didn't go extinct because of humans. Mammoths went extinct because of the natural warming and cooling of the planet. It's just that they were caught at the very end of that cooling stage, and whenever everything started getting warmer, they died off because, I mean, with all that fur, that is meant, like evolution wise, for the cold. Whenever it starts getting warmer, you're gonna get really fucking hot in that sweater that you can't take off because you're a mammoth. So they died off. And what really gets me about a lot of people, especially a lot of liberals, a lot of people on the left, is whenever they're like, oh, we should do all this stuff for wind. We should do all this stuff for solar. We should do all this stuff for biomass, for geothermal, for this and that. But then they were like, nuclear is too dangerous and is a stupid idea because it'll blow up one day. I think that is really stupid, because if you really want to take climate change seriously, and actually there's a quote by Cory Booker about this whenever he was discussing the American Nuclear Infrastructure Act of 2020. Essentially, he said that in the time that I have been fighting for climate change, for a resolution in climate change, I always underestimated nuclear. But once I actually opened my eyes to nuclear, it was like, wow, why are we not adopting this? Because nuclear is safe, nuclear is efficient, and it is way more. It's way better than solar and wind. Wind and solar are actually very efficient power sources, but they're not the holy grail of energy production. And in reality, the holy grail of energy production is something called fusion nuclear reactors. Not even nuclear reactors, it's fusion nuclear reactors. And we are actually on the cusp of discovering fusion technology. I think there was like a story that I read the other day, basically, where they actually kind of like they did a test of a nuclear fusion, and they actually produced 300 times the energy production of the United States in like 1 second, in like just span of a couple of seconds. And even then, like the discussion that we're having on this today is that we're going to the moon, and the energy production, whenever we actually make a base on the moon, is not going to be solar. It's not going to be wind. Obviously, it's not going to be wind. That would be funny if it was wind. That would be inefficient, by the way. It's not going to be solar. It's going to be nuclear. We're using nuclear technology to power our facilities on the moon whenever we set up a base there. So um, a lot of people are just like, oh, well, I mean, it's too dangerous. There's only been like 3 different incidents in the history of nuclear technology in which nuclear power has gone wrong. And even then, it has killed those 3 incidents have killed less than coal has. They have killed less than oil has. They have actually even killed less than what solar and wind have killed. So, yeah, that's basically my take on it. I think it's a really ignorant whenever people are like, "Oh, we need to go for wind and solar only." And as much as I respect Bernie Sanders, he's an idiot whenever it comes to energy production. So I'm looking at chat right now. Apparently, everyone's talking about PTK and AMN in Norway. It says climate change should not be a political issue. When things get so bad they affect the whole world, it will be far too late. And that's the other thing. I don't necessarily believe the assumption that like the world is going to end in 12 years. No, the world is not going to end in 12 years. The world is just going to be there's going to be a lot more wildfires, there's going to be a lot more tornadoes, there's going to be a lot stronger hurricanes, there's going to be um rising sea levels isn't really going to affect us until the next couple hundred years because it takes a long time for one ice to melt. And most of the what really got me like, earlier whenever I first started getting into politics, a lot of people were like this is what the world is going to look like if all of the ice melts. Okay, so the thing is that all of the ice would have to melt up in the north and then all the way down in the South Pole, which I believe it would take hundreds of years at the rate that we are burning right now. If we were just to say, okay, screw the environment, we're not going to close down any factories, we're going to continue to burn the same amount of CO2 every year as we have been for the past like 10 years. It would still take hundreds and hundreds of years for all of that ice to melt. And then we would actually be talking about, massive refugee crises that our later children would have to deal with. But at the rate that we're doing right now, it's actually way better for us to, say, okay, let's change our energy policies, and that'll help over the next 100 years. But we're not looking at an end of the world type of scenario. If you're reading something and they say the world is going to end in 12 years, they literally have no idea what they're talking about because the world will not become uninhabitable in 12 years because there's still a lot of other places that have very clean air. Matt, are you still there?
No, I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for going on that rant.
No, you're good. Yeah, you're good. No, I was just gonna say though, like I don't like when like the thing is with climate change is when the globalist elites just come together and they just try to be like, we gotta get the Paris Accord going on, right? And then when we try to make a change, when the Biden administration and the Obama administration try to make a change and try to make sure that climate change and global warming doesn't happen, other countries are not doing their part. And that's the reason why Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. And people are like, well, then you're just trying to be you're not being anti-global. You're being anti-global. I'm just like, you are being, of course, is America first. That's literally the whole thing. The reason why we're being America first is we're tired of wasting our money, and especially our taxpayer money, going towards a global contract that basically is going to try to help end, like, or basically prevent or slow down, I would say, global warming. The problem is you got countries like Iran, you got countries like China, you got countries like India. You have their people, dirtying their water, urinating and, defecating, throughout their, the water lines, their streets. China, you got, smog going around. You got, like, there's, like, very bad air in China. And China's half communist, just so you know, because they're communists within the internet, but they're not communists within, like, their government, I would say. Like, the internet-wise, they're very strict on it.
They're socialist with Chinese characteristics, according to them.
Yeah. So they're, like, so-and-so, like, free, and then they're not. It depends on what type of I would say, level you are with the government. But my point being is that you got these countries, saying, oh, yeah, U.S. pays all this money, we'll pay a little bit less than they do. That's the problem, because we're paying more into it, we're doing our part, and then we got the liberals and the leftists being like, oh, well, the United States isn't doing their part. We try to do our part. In fact, our air is clean. We were energy independent. Our gas prices were low. I know in the state of Rhode Island, my gas prices were $1.79, like around $1.69 at least.
It was about the same here.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It was so cheap. And I know, like, other states, like, California was somewhat expensive, obviously, but we know, like in red states like Texas and, maybe it's like South Dakota, Nebraska, their gas prices are going to be very low. Rhode Island, it's whatever, but it was good that, even in, like, some small blue states, their gas prices were low because of what Trump was doing for this country, trying to bring in energy independence. Biden dismantled the pipeline, canceled it. We lost 11,000 jobs, and it's a ripple effect because you also got people that make the parts for it. So that's going to, decrease, the jobs, even though, jobs are going up apparently. But now we're not energy independent anymore, and for that reason, we have to pay more for gas. And now, everybody that voted for Biden, they're all concerned about paying, more money for gas. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's who you voted for. The problem is that, we can't be energy independent. We can't be anything independent. Other countries have to criticize us, but they can't even do their part in return. And they screw us for our money because of the fact that they have really nothing there to do it, to give. They have nothing to do, they have nothing to show. And that is a problem that we have throughout the world. And I think that's why when they say, the presidency of the United States is the most powerful, seat in the world, because we're on top. We are on top of what we need to do. We are more organized than other countries. And we've been screwed around for decades and decades and decades. And when we're trying to do our thing, they get mad because they know for a fact they're not getting the money that they originally were getting from Democrats like Obama and Clinton. And it just shows. Even Bush was a terrible president. Let's just be honest. Like, I don't like Bush. Bush 43 was terrible. Bush 43 was terrible. I don't even care if he's a Republican. He's a neocon. I don't respect Bush for what he did.
He's directly, I wouldn't say directly, but he initiated a war that killed my own brother. So that's like one of the biggest reasons why I hate him.
Like, the thing is like, yes, he was popular throughout 9/11, trying to rejoice the country, but at the same time, you're going in for weapons of mass destruction, which was proven that there wasn't. And then you're starting off another war. What he should have had done was go into Afghanistan. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. So what's the problem? Exactly. You should have gone to Afghanistan from the very beginning, should have eliminated Osama bin Laden, and then left. Well, or you should have had have some troops there and, kind of stabilize the country a bit, and maybe Afghanistan, maybe Iraq wouldn't be a thing during the Obama administration or Trump, but it's whatever. And you see what's going on right now in Afghanistan. It's terrible, all because we have poor leadership. And that's what's going to cause us to be more in debt, because of poor leadership. And that's what the globalist elites wants us to have, is poor leadership. It's just terrible. It really is.
Because every great country has collapsed because of weak leaders.
Exactly. You got somebody that has dementia and their VP is a racist cop. Now, it's okay. You got 81 million people want to vote for them. 81 million people are racist. You want to come after Trump for being racist, but he's done a lot good than Biden, and now the Biden supporters are now regretting it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in 2022 and 2024 when
I know multiple people that are just really disappointed about the current state of the Biden administration, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of progressives that are not going to turn out in 2022.
At least 10%. At least 10% of voters are pissed off at Biden, and they're regretting their vote. So
yeah, 10%.
I believe I believe 10%. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
I'm not sure. I think it's less than 10, but I know it's somewhere around 10% of voters are mad at Biden. But I know I have a person that was thinking about voting for Trump, and then of course he's LGBT, so he voted for Biden. Again, he doesn't understand policy. And I told him about policy. He didn't want to listen to me. He just wanted to go on the CNN rhetoric. Voted for Biden, and now he regrets his decision and now wants to vote for Trump. I'm like, well, that's your fault. Now we got to deal with it for 4 years. That's your problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's whatever. What do you think of how Biden is handling foreign policy? Freaking terrible. I'm not liking this. I think
he's going to go down as one of the worst foreign policy presidents in.
Like he's worse than Jimmy Carter, and I hate to say that because Jimmy Carter, he did nothing during the Iranian hostage crisis in 1979, and it kind of led to basically it honestly, if you think about it, it's kind of funny because Reagan took all the credit when he got inaugurated. They all got released. Biden's taking all the credit from Trump after the vaccines were given out. And it's just a ripple effect. Now, with Biden's foreign policy, you have the open borders. And again, he cares about COVID-19 so much. Let's talk about this. When you have people crossing the border that have COVID-19, there was another variant that we never even had in the country yet, which is an L variant, which was in Central America at the time. You should close the borders, but no, he doesn't want to close the borders. And it's terrible. He doesn't want to close the borders, especially in Texas. Texas, you got McAllen. There's a whole outbreak in that McAllen because he didn't want to close the borders. And the problem is that he likes to talk about how he wants to protect everybody from COVID-19, but that's fake news. He doesn't. He wants to talk about how masks are good, but yet we can't wear a mask. Of course, we have a whole national shortage going on with hospitals and everything, but that's something else. Has nothing to do with foreign policy, but that's something else really that he's being terrible with. But it corresponds to foreign policy because you're not closing your borders. You're letting people come in, and then you're being a hypocrite and not caring about your own people. Then caring about foreign people. Now Afghanistan, he was terrible in Afghanistan. Now I do agree that we should withdraw from Afghanistan. I absolutely agree with that decision. Although we shouldn't have left Afghanistan the way we did. And I'll explain why. Because right now, the way that we did it, and Trump said this 4 years ago in August of 2017, that if we did a very fast withdrawal, problems would arise, the Taliban would take over. And he said that in 2017. Look what's going on right now. Terrible. And what we're seeing now is the Taliban taking over. Biden said, oh, yeah, they're not going to take over. And then they did. So really, he doesn't understand how foreign policy really works. He doesn't understand mainly what's going on. I don't think he's really getting the intel that he needs to get. But it's an issue. And mainly what should have happened is if you wanted to withdraw, you should have taken the citizens out first, slowly. Knowing that, honestly, because Afghan's government did leave, but at the same time, you should have had the I would say you should have the U.S. citizens leave first. You should have had the U.S. Consulates and the U.S. The diplomat. You got the diplomats in in the embassies. You should have had them evacuated before the soldiers. You shouldn't be having the soldiers evacuate before anybody else, because then now you're just leaving people behind. And because of that, Biden killed 12 to 13 soldiers in a terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrible. And there's more to come with this, because obviously not only with Afghanistan, but now we have to worry about North Korea, because North Korea is not really in the news, but North Korea does not like Biden. They really don't. So that's really
one of the biggest things. Is what really gets me worried is that Biden is just, a lot of people didn't mess with the United States during the Trump administration because they literally had no idea what Trump was going to do.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Biden is like, oh yeah, I stand by my decision. And whenever he became president, I really tried to give him a chance. Everyone was just like, oh, election fraud, oh this, oh that. But then I'm just like, I wanted to give him a chance. I wanted to see what he had to do. And then the moment that bomb went off in Kabul and killed those 13 soldiers, I was just like, okay, your chance is over. I gave you 8 months and this is what you've done. So what really gets me is that, and what I'm really, really worried about is that a lot of countries are going to try to take advantage of the weak leadership that we have. I don't like to say oh, we have a weak leader, because I don't think we've really had a weak leader in a while. And kind of real quick, what you said about Jimmy Carter, I wouldn't necessarily say that he didn't try to do anything. It's just that he didn't do anything militarily.
He's very weak on the problem. That's what basically is.
But then at the same time, I've actually seen there's just a 1 or 2 hour documentary, not really documentary, it's just a video of the last hours of the Carter administration before Reagan took over, and essentially Carter was basically on the phone for the weeks and weeks and weeks before his administration ended, and literally going up to noon of January 20th, 1981, he was still on the phone. He was still trying to get the hostages home. And I believe at that point, everyone, I think the Iranians were basically okay, we'll go ahead and give the hostages back, because I think Reagan made some sort of backroom deal, so by the time that he became president, they were okay, we'll go ahead and give the hostages back.
Yeah.
But what really gets me about the Biden administration is that I'm worried about especially what the Chinese are going to do. And I feel that under the Biden administration, if the United States sees an invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese military, that the Biden administration is just going to stand by and just kind of watch it happen, as they did in Afghanistan. They'll try to say, we'll evacuate people, we'll do this, we'll do that. But even if we send if we glance at Taiwan wrong during that moment, the Chinese will take it as a threat and start firing on positions in Okinawa and possibly even Guam. And that's just what really worries me, is that the weak leadership is going to show, and then, the Russians could make moves in eastern Ukraine, the Chinese could make moves against Taiwan. There's just a lot of possibilities being open because of what happened in Afghanistan. But at least right now, the Biden administration is basically like China if you make a move against Taiwan, we're still going to defend them, even though he's not necessarily supposed to say that. So it's a really, really mixed bag right now, but I'm just not too what do you call it? I guess inspired by the events that transpired in Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
So I'm looking at the chat. So it's a someone said China's a ruthless authoritarian dictatorship drunk on a huge, almost endless pile of money we paid them for their citizens' inhumane, cheap labor. Someone said, "Truth is, we're all screwed. In fact, we are all slaves to an elite that controls us through our own thoughts." Well, that's a loaded comment right there. AMN says, "I think pulling out of Afghanistan would have happened whether who won. At the end date was August 31st. I don't think Trump would have backed down from that end date." That's the other thing about Afghanistan, is that the Taliban, even during the Trump administration, like the years, I think even like since 2018, the Taliban has been gaining ground in Afghanistan. So, like, it wasn't just this like massive like surprise. It's just that, and this is why I don't singularly blame Biden for this, because this is the failure of everyone since the Bush administration. Because the Bush administration went in with no exit strategy, he just kind of said, okay, we were attacked and let's go ahead and go blow some shit up. They go to blow some shit up. They lose the guy that they were supposed to kill at Tora Bora, and then looked for him for 10 years in the wrong country, which I think that I don't understand why we're so friendly with Pakistan, since they've literally stabbed us in the back multiple times since 9/11. And then we just searched for the guy for 10 years while basically getting our asses handed to by some guys in the mountains. And then, we start to say, okay, 20 years is enough. We're going to go ahead and we have other threats that we need to tend to. So we're going to go ahead and start pulling out. The Taliban just kind of like waits for the clock to tick. They just kind of keep waiting. And then they go, oh, yeah, hell yeah, let's go ahead and just take over, like coinciding with the pullout of the Americans. And then it just kind of like happened so quickly that's one of the biggest reasons why everyone was like, oh, why are we like, oh, this is all Biden's fault. But at the same time, I seriously feel like it is more of a failure of every administration. And, Trump was the one that kind of met with them and said, like, we will meet, we will pull out. And he actually had that meeting, but he didn't have that meeting with the Afghan government. He only had that meeting with the Taliban.
Well, the thing is, though, he tried making peace for the Middle East. And we already know this was going to happen. But because of COVID, it necessarily didn't get done. And I think it would have been done. Obviously. The thing is, though, is that Trump, like you said, Trump wouldn't necessarily withdraw yet. I think Trump would have had at least negotiate with I wouldn't say negotiate with the Taliban, but made at least a peace treaty between Afghans and the Taliban, trying to make sure that there is peace in the Middle East, which he was trying to establish. But now Biden has screwed all that up. And mainly, I also think that after everything is all set to order, he would have all the troops slowly withdraw out of Afghanistan. That way, there is a confirmation that there is peace in the Middle East. Now, if there was a case that after the fact they break the peace treaty, fine, we'll come back and we'll just, we'll have to deal with it. But again, we've been in Afghanistan for 20 years now, and we should have had only been in Afghanistan for only 2, at least 2 years. There was not really it was hard to find Osama bin Laden at first, but at the same time, instead of worrying about Saddam Hussein, who wasn't really necessarily like a threat, we should have been worried about who was actually behind this, which he knew the day of 9/11. So mainly we should have had, when he was having his mission accomplished speech in 2003, I believe, that should have been when they exited Afghanistan and killed Osama bin Laden. But no, they did it because
mission accomplished was Iraq. That was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I know, but that should have been Afghanistan. They shouldn't be worrying about other countries that don't really have an initial threat. Like, if it wasn't, the thing is, like I said, Saddam Hussein, I didn't think would be like necessarily a threat. And you shouldn't be worrying about Saddam Hussein after 9/11 because, again, he literally confirmed that it was Osama bin Laden behind it. So, again, instead of going to Iraq or wherever he was from, he should have had gone to Afghanistan and hunt down Osama bin Laden. And that should have been the mission accomplished. And then I would assume that at the same time, negotiate with Saddam Hussein one-on-one and try to make some sort of a peace between each other. That way there isn't necessarily a conflict going on top of trying to hunt down Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. And the thing about Iraq, I don't know. I think that something would have happened to Iraq within that time frame, at least give or take about 10 years. I feel like something big would have happened in Iraq, or it still would have fallen into a civil war if the United States never went into Iraq because of the Arab Spring. I don't think that Saddam would have survived the internet age for very long. And the thing about Iraq too, they literally were the subject of dozens of different UN resolutions. They were literally killing their own citizens in Kurdistan, even in places not Kurdistan. And someone would have brought the hammer down on them soon enough. And Iraq is actually relatively okay now, even though, we botched the withdrawal, ISIS became a thing. Iraq is actually, I haven't heard that much stuff out of Iraq, at least within the last couple of years. And ISIS is still a a threat. But then at the same time, I believe that Iraq, it's still, I don't know. I guess I would have to take that back because they're not relatively peaceful, but I think things have, I guess, essentially been cooling down. I'm looking at something right now. Apparently, protests broke out in 2019, which caused the resignation of the prime minister. And in 2020, he was named by President someone that kind of got resolved or whatever. And then essentially they just had some sort of government problems there. And then, obviously in 2020, even the Iraqis were like, hey, don't use our country as a base of operations to kill major generals from Iran. But I guess within the next 10 to 20 years, Iraq is actually going to maybe be comparable to Turkey. I guess they could have a sizable military. They could have relatively stable government, except I'm pretty sure there's still going to be a lot of corruption. So I guess Iraq could, and within the next 10, 20 years, again, they could be similar in terms to maybe Kuwait or even a Turkey. It's just that they actually have oil.
Well, here's another thing too, which you had, what came across my mind as well is another thing that failed under the Biden administration is the fact that with what was going on regarding to, with Israel and Hamas. I feel like some people have forgot all about that. I mean, personally, I almost did forget about that, which was literally from the start of the Biden administration when this happened. But the problem is Biden was praising Hamas, not Israel. And in fact, he was asking for Netanyahu's resignation. The problem is, as well, is the fact that, at the same time, Hamas was the one, Palestine was the one that was attacking first. So why are you praising for a country that was attacking a innocent country? Now, I understand, over the decades and decades, Israel has taken over more land, but at the same time, the thing is that they had their own land, and they had a war for the land. Now, the thing is, when the war was over, technically the war isn't over, but the war was somewhat over for a while, and the U.S. isn't really necessarily supporting Israel than it was now, and Joe Biden and the Democrats are supporting the wrong side, I would say, in that issue.
And someone actually made a comment just a minute ago. Someone said, the Middle East is old news. Time to pull out of there. China needs a turn to mess up. And I actually do. And I actually had this discussion earlier, is that I believe that instead of concentrating on the Middle East, as we have been doing for the past 20 years, it's time to finally just kind of say, okay, Middle East, time for you to not be in our foresights, and it's time to turn our sights back to Asia. And this kind of circles down to, like, should America be active in foreign policy, in world affairs? What are your thoughts on that?
What was the question again?
Should America be isolationist, or should America be active in places like Asia, as we're probably going to be within the next 5 to 10 years, probably within the next 2 to 10 years? I think should we be active?
I think we should be an isolationist country, only because, like I mentioned before when we were talking about the Paris Climate Accord, other countries are not really helping us out. We're helping them, but they're not giving us the scratch in the back, the pad in the back, I would say, back. And that's a problem, because we help them, but they're not helping us. And we're just wasting more resources, more money, and they're just getting all the money that we have. I do think, although we shouldn't be completely isolationist, I do think that we should pull out of countries that necessarily we don't need any military appearances, like Europe and Asia. No, I mean, South Korea could somewhat be an exception, but again, that's only until, if either Trump gets elected back, or I'm not sure when, or maybe whenever the next president or so, because Biden's not really being negotiable with North Korea, and he's made that clear in the presidential debates. Now Trump was president, I would think that yes, South Korea could possibly pull. The U.S. can possibly pull out South Korea, and somewhat. I wouldn't necessarily pull out of a lot, though. If we gain a lot of trust with North Korea, then that's a thing. Though I do think that the military should pull out of numerous countries, and especially continents, that really don't need our military support, especially since they don't support our military. Again, America First, with the America First agenda, we've had polls for the last 4 years of Donald Trump. It's actually been benefiting our country. Now we're no longer isolationists from the country, from the world anymore, and now we're going more in debt. We're in wars that we're not really supposed to be in, and we're basically contributing to the Paris Climate Accord again. We're giving money to other countries that necessarily don't need it, and they're not giving us the money that they owe us. And because of that, China now has, I would say, has a stronger economy than the United States, or will very soon if they haven't yet. But again, Biden doesn't care because Biden loves China.
Hmm.
Trump was very enforcive when it came to China and Mexico and Canada. They made a peace treaty. Well, they made a trade deal, the USMCA, which is a great trade policy that they had signed. And I do think that overall, that definitely benefited American workers as of bringing jobs back into the country. Helping with trading in products that that can be used to basically be used to put on with American workers, and stuff that can be used for um, good things for America. Also, fair trade, as of like we pay them and they pay us the fair wages that we deserve. So honestly, I feel like being isolationist from other countries, now we shouldn't be isolated like North Korea is necessarily. Um, but at the same time, I think that we should be somewhat close to a few allies and pull out of countries that we don't necessarily need to have our military support in.
Okay. Do you feel like that Taiwan is an ally of ours?
I believe so. Now, if Taiwan was to, I mean, according to what I'm hearing, I believe Taiwan is an ally, though China is not necessarily like in Taiwan. And there are threats that if we help Taiwan, then there's World War III, which I mean, necessarily
Essentially.
that's beyond that's big. I'm not sure how to say it, but that is like way beyond what is expected over trying to help.
Essentially, if Taiwan is attacked and the United States gets involved, it will drag the Chinese and the Americans into a war against each other.
But statistically,
We would
I mean, China would definitely be
directly.
defeated. China would definitely get defeated by the United States. Of course,
I think
China
so too.
necessarily like China doesn't have the technology that we do, and that's why we have to build our military. Now they say, "Oh, why don't you cut military funding?" Well, the reason why is because you have other countries like Russia, advancing their military. You don't know, but Russia has more nuclear weapons than the United States does. And if that's a problem, because if Russia has the most weapons around the country, we're second place with nuclear weapons. So if we don't stop trying to build our military and make it stronger with the new technology that we have in order to interfere with missiles and stuff, then obviously we're going to lose later on. And that's going to be a big problem because then, it's just going to cause more problems.
Yeah, and the Chinese are actually, for one, they're building their nuclear forces. There's a lot of missile silos that are starting to pop up over in the western deserts of China, and of course, they're not saying anything about why they're building these silos, but they're basically building up their nuclear forces. And two, they've actually, and I can send you the video if you don't believe me. Um, they've literally directly threatened to nuke Japan again and again and again and again if they were to send one ship, one person, or one equipment to Taiwan in the event of China reunifying Taiwan and China.
See, I wouldn't be surprised if they even said that. So
Yeah, and they basically said, like, they basically were like if you get involved, we're going to nuke you again and again and again until you unconditionally surrender a second time. So And the Japanese are actually basically backing the Taiwanese and they're actually, and I think Japan is literally close to recognizing Taiwan as a legitimate country, which I feel like is going to start a diplomatic crisis between Japan and Taiwan, or Japan and China, if that were to happen. So I think it's going to be an interesting historical event if this were to happen, and even our generals, like active duty generals, are basically saying that we need to start deploying forces over into the Pacific, into Guam, into Japan, into South Korea, because of the threat that's coming not from North Korea, but the threat that's coming from China. And even there was a retired Navy admiral that basically said that the Chinese are more powerful than us in every war game that we've ever simulated against China has resulted in the United States being defeated.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at chat right now. I know we haven't been interacting that much with chat. It's just been more of a discussion. Someone said, "Bro, what do you mean Russia has just had a temper tantrum? Same with China. We need our military around the world. They support us, expanding the general's knowledge on the battlefield in different countries." I think he was saying that to you.
I don't think I've ever brought Russia. I seen that comment. I don't think I brought Russia before that comment got brought up. So I'm not sure if it was towards you actually.
Oh, I actually don't remember.
Let me look at this comment real quick. No, I never really said. I didn't say Russia anything. I think I only brought up Russia when it came to nuclear weapons, but that was literally right like maybe a minute after he posted that. So I think maybe it was towards you more.
The thing I said about Russia was that like if we become isolationist, then the Russians could hit eastern Ukraine, and the Chinese could take Taiwan. I think that's all I said on Russia, unless I need to go back and watch it once we're done with this.
Yeah.
Someone said, "I would join the military if we went to war with China." I think about it too. Feel like I'm like a 50-50 chance of doing that if we did go to war with China. Someone said I'm all degreed up, so I wouldn't have a combat role. Japan Heart. Now I played that war game. The game isn't 100% accurate. I'm talking about like an actual war game, by the way. Yeah, in Power and Revolution, I beat China. Yeah, cool. That's definitely a great simulation on how we should fight China.
Yeah.
Seb Gallen, welcome to the live stream. Okay, so yeah, that's all the chat that was going on. We've been streaming for about an hour and a half. Do you want to go ahead and wrap it up here?
Yeah, I mean, necessarily. I mean, it's just the way that this country is going towards the world. It's just going to go back to Obama. Trump warned us. No one cares. Now, as of the main topic of this podcast, which is about the moon thing, if America should go back to the moon, I mean, Trump did try to get the Space Force, put into place. I think that we should necessarily go back for the necessary resources that we need to get and to beat the competition. I mean, you got China, you got Russia. They're going to try to do the same exact thing. And we got to do what we got to do.
Yeah, I agree that, going back, I actually did change the title of this live stream. It's should America go back to the moon plus discussion on foreign policy. So that way, since we did go on to a foreign policy tangent, that it'll be relevant. But yeah, I honestly believe that if we are to go to the moon, I think it's going to be an extremely exciting thing to do. You know, it's with the technology that we have now, with the live streaming capabilities that we have now. You know, it's no longer going to be some blurry black and white camera that we're going to be sending there. We're going to be sending like the most high quality footage that we are going to have of the moon. And I'm really excited for us to send that space station there, to send to send more people there, to start economic activity on the moon. That way, we can actually, do more in space, and eventually, within the next 100 years, after landing on the moon again, then we can start our journey deeper into the cosmos, and that's essentially the end goal of a return to the moon. Is that we're not just going to the moon; it's essentially that we're going deeper into the cosmos. We would start drilling onto Europa. We would have maybe stations on Jupiter. We would have bases on the moons of Saturn, outposts into the deepest sections of our solar system on Uranus and Neptune. So I'm reading a chat before we go. Is there a scenario where the United States brings back the draft? I think the war would have to, if we were to get into a third world war, it would have to get really bad. I think basically the Chinese would have to be invading the United States for us to start the draft again. We have 1.5 million active duty, very specially highly trained men and women in the armed forces. And I think it would be extremely difficult for the draft to come back. But I think like something major would have had to have happened if we were to institute the draft again. Says the world is too soft for war. That actually makes a lot of sense. I really enjoyed the stream. Glad you guys got sidetracked. This AF. This was fun. It actually was. If Matt, if you want to have another stream together, whether it's on your channel or my channel, I would definitely like to have you on again. We could,
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I like I said, I just got off with. Oh my god, I've been on StreamYard for 3 hours straight now. I've been on StreamYard since 1 p.m. And then I had maybe another 30-minute discussion with Frank Polo, who's primarying Maria Salazar, and then I just came and joined here, and then there we go. I'm here for another hour and a half, and it's now been 3 hours since I've been on StreamYards, So, I mean, it was a pleasure. Again, it was a pleasure, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure something out of maybe I'll do a separate live stream sometime soon. I have a lot of things booked up. Like Friday morning, I have Trump endorsed candidate Steve Carra coming on. Next Wednesday, I have someone that's primarying Dan Newhouse who impeached Trump. So I got a lot of live streams going on, and I'm trying to figure my schedule, especially on top of working too. So yeah, it was definitely fun. Yeah.
For those watching right now, guys, let's go ahead and subscribe to Matt Gagnon. He does have a YouTube channel. So go and subscribe to him. He does have a lot of politicians, a lot of political candidates that are on his live streams. So make sure to catch those live streams. Go subscribe to him. He's about to hit 1,000 subscribers. He's very close. He's about 140 subscribers away. Yeah. 134 subscribers away from hitting 1,000. So let's help him hit 1,000. I'm gonna try to be shouting you out in as many live streams as I can. So go. So I'll try to. Yeah. No problem. And I mean, next time you're in town, we definitely need to do something again. Whether it's going to get dinner.
I don't know where that's gonna be because God.
Yeah, I know it's probably gonna be a while.
While from now. No, I will. I am going to Florida in February, so we'll see.
Oh yeah, you're gonna meet Vince Dow.
We'll see. We'll see what happens in Florida.
Yeah, But guys, if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you guys want to see more content like this, hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any videos that I do make.
Yep. Sub to PG, guys.
Yeah, and make sure you sub to me, but also make sure you guys sub to Matt Gagnon as well. He's a very cool guy. I met him not that long ago in real life, which is the first time I've ever met Discord/YouTube friends. So it was a very interesting experience.
Oh yeah.
Me and him and Red Eagle Politics all got together and had dinner. So again, if you're ever in town again, we definitely need to get together again.
Yeah, definitely.
But guys, go ahead and just sub. You should put his link in the description. I will do that. Thank you for telling me that. Let me actually do that before I go. Matt Gagnon, special Master Chef. That's essentially, yes. That is Matt Gagnon right there. All right, so do this. All right, I put your link in the description of this video.
Okay.
And,
yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to. Okay, so yeah, I'll do it once I end the stream. So yeah, guys, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go ahead and subscribe to Matt Gagnon as well. And I will see you guys in the next live stream. So make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.